am studying BSc Physical Education second year in Madras Christian College. Today, I am here to share about altitude training, which is one of the methods used in sports. Let us begin with the history. The study of the altitude training was rapidly developed during and after the 1968 Olympics, which actually took place in the Mexico City. This was because the Mexico's elevation was 2,240 meters, that is 7,349 feet above the sea level. The endurance events below record finishes, while the sprint events broke all types of records. This results ultimately inspired investigations into altitude training, from which unique training principles were developed with the aim of avoiding underperformance. So we all know the common term altitude. Altitude is something, the height or a distance which is measured vertical or in upward direction, right? So the term altitude is commonly used to mean the height which is above the sea level of a location. So what is training? Altitude training. Altitude training is a method practiced by athletes and other sports persons for improvement of their endurance in high altitudes, and they stay there for several weeks and train in the hilly regions. Though more intermediate altitudes are commonly used altitude methods because there is a shortage of suitable high altitude locations. Even at intermediate altitudes, the air still contains approximately 20.9% of oxygen, but the partial pressure of oxygen is reduced. High altitude is typically defined as any elevation that is above 1,500 meters or 5,000 feet above the sea level in geographically. So now let us know few terms in altitude training. Normally 20.9% of gas in the atmosphere contains oxygen. So next, the total atmospheric pressure decreases as the altitude increases, which leads to lower partial pressure of oxygen, which is defined as hypobaric hypoxia. Partial pressure of oxygen is denoted by PO2. So now let us see about the levels of altitude. Altitude is classified into several categories ranging from sea level, which is above 500 meter, to low altitude, which is above 500 to 2000 meters, and the moderate altitude, which is above 2000 to 3000 meters, and the high altitude, which is above 3000 to 5500 meters, and the last is extreme altitude, which is above 5500 meters. Contrary to popular belief, the percentage of oxygen is same at the different altitudes. So the training in altitudes. In sports, high altitude typically means at least 7,000 to 8,000 feet above the sea level. Cyclists, runners, mountain racers, and even other sports person uses this high altitude training to enhance their oxygen utilization and increase their endurance capacity. There are three common methods of altitude training. They are live high, train low, which is LHTL. The second one is live high, train high, which is LHTH. And the third one is live low, train high, LLTH. And let us see about a small brief about this altitude training method in upcoming slides. So the first one is live high, train low method. Involves using at living at higher altitudes in order to experience the physiological adaptations such as increased erythropoietin EPO levels, increased red blood cell levels, and higher VO2 max, while maintaining the same exercise intensity during the training at the sea level. Due to the environmental differences at high altitude, it is necessary to decrease the intensity of workouts at some times. Studies examining the live high, train low theory has produced various results depending on various factors such as individuals' variability, time spent at high altitude, and the time of training program. So the next one is live high, train high method. The stimulus on the body is constant because the athlete is continuously in a hypoxic environment. Initially, VO2 max drops considerably by around 7% for every 1000 meter above the sea level. Athletes will no longer be able to metabolize as much as oxygen as they could at sea level. The next one are the advantages of training at high altitude. Altitude training can increase the speed, strength, endurance in your performance and recovery by maintaining altitude exposure for a significant period of time. So there are two contradictory effects seen on the performance at high altitudes. For athletes, for athletes who involved in for explosive events, that is sprints up to 400 meters, results in improved athletic performance, whereas the endurance events such as races of 5000 meters or more generally reduces the athlete's performance at high altitude. This is because of the reduction in oxygen. Next, let us see about the stimulating methods. That is, without performing the altitude training in high regions, we can even perform it from the place where you are with the new technologies such as altitude stimulation tent, altitude stimulation room, or where the barometric pressure is kept the same but the oxygen content is reduced, which also reduces the partial pressure of oxygen in the environment. And the next one is hypoventilation training, which consists of reducing the breathing frequency while air exercise. So there is a real-time example of artificial altitude. That is, in Finland, a scientist named Heikki Rusko has designed a high-altitude house. The air inside the house, which is situated at sea level, is at normal pressure but modified to have a low concentration of oxygen, about 15.3%, which is below the 20.9% at sea level, which is roughly equivalent to the amount of oxygen available in the high altitudes. Athletes used to train at a reduced partial pressure of oxygen at altitudes. Athletes live and sleep inside the house but perform their training outside at normal oxygen concentrations at 20.9%. Rusko's results have shown improvements of EPO levels and red blood cells. So what are the causes of altitude training? At high altitude trainings, there is a decrease in oxygen and hemoglobin saturation. This hypoxic condition causes hypoxia inducible factor, the 1, that is HIF1, to become stable and stimulates the production of erythropoietin, EPO, a hormone secreted by the kidneys. EPO stimulates the red blood cell production from bone marrow in order to increase the hemoglobin saturation and for oxygen delivery. And at the same time, it also increases the VO2 max. EPO is also made synthetically to help treat patients with kidney failures and even patients during chemotherapy. So what is erythropoietin, EPO? Over the past 30 years, EPO has been frequently abused by competitive athletes through blood doping and injections to gain advantages in endurance events. Abuse of EPO, however, increased RBC counts beyond the normal levels and increased blood viscosity, potentially causing hypertension, blood clots, heart attacks, or stroke. Altitude training can boost EPO secretion by human kidneys. But the body has limitations, right, to prevent harmful side effects from illegal doping procedures. The next one is effects of altitude training. Altitude training can produce slow recovery due to the stress of hypoxia. Exposure to extreme hypoxia at altitude above 16,000 feet, that is 5,000 meters, can lead to considerable deterioration of skeletal muscle tissues. 5 weeks at this altitude will lead to loss of muscles volume of about 10 to 15%. There are three main types of altitude sickness. The first one is acute mild altitude or mountain sickness, that is AMS. The second one is high altitude pulmonary edema, which is commonly known as HAPE. And the third one is high altitude cerebral edema. So let us know the principles and mechanisms of high altitude training. Altitude training works because of the difference in atmospheric pressure between. Altitude training is done to experience the atmospheric pressure between the sea level and high altitude. At sea level, air is denser and there are more molecules of gas per liter of air. Gas per liter of air. Regardless of altitude, air is composed of 21% of oxygen and 78% of nitrogen. As the altitude increases, the pressure exerted by these gases decreases. Therefore, there are fewer molecules per unit volume. This causes a decrease in partial pressures of gases in the body, which elicits a variety of physiological changes in the body that occurs at high altitudes. The next Subhas High Altitude Center. The facilities are gymnasium and swimming pool, hockey field, AstroTurf and 3 grass fields, athletic track, basketball courts and 100 beds hostel is also available in the center. And there is a hockey stadium. The Shillara Hockey Stadium was constructed in the year of 2010 and was maintained by Sports Authority of India. It has modern facilities for hockey like synthetic turf, etc. What are the good venues to actually experience high altitude training is? The first one is Mammoth Lakes in California, and the second one is Flagstaff, Arizona, and the third one is Sierra Nevada near Granada in Spain. So what are the expected durations of changes in the altitude, high altitude and even in the low altitudes? When we are going from sea level heights to high altitude levels, the symptoms usually come on within 12 to 24 hours of reaching a higher elevation. Then it will get better within a day or 2 days of your body adjust to the change in the altitude. After coming from high altitude to the sea levels, it will take 2 to 3 days to rest at a lower altitude. It will slowly decreases the acute mountain sickness. Severe syndromes such as HAPE can take weeks to cure. One study explained the success by increasing the intensity of the training that is performed in high altitudes, which will increase the heart rate and respiration, as even resulted the effect that lasted more than 15 days after return to the sea levels. What are the ways to acclimate the altitude? Here some of them are listed below. Drink lots of water. Reduce your intensity of exercise. Get enough sleep. Limit your alcohol intakes. Increase your potassium level. Protect yourself from the sun. Consume more calories. Acclimatization to altitude may occur between 12 to 14 days to moderate altitudes of up to 2,300 meters above the sea level. However, it has been found that this process may take up to several months. So let us summarize this altitude training. High altitude is equal to low oxygen environment. So your body requires more oxygen and will increase levels of red blood cells to aid this. There are different reasons for training at altitudes, including adapting to competitions or training to improve performance at a low elevation. High altitude training can also boost VO2 max and tolerance to lactic acid. You need to spend at least a week at altitude and somewhere over 4,000 feet above the sea level to feel any benefits. Good hydration and iron-rich foods are essential for your body to adapt to a higher climate. So remember, when you're experiencing a training at high altitudes, be hydrated and have a iron-rich foods and have a good intake to your body. All the best and experience the high altitude training with more information.